looks like it's working. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dale Bateman. I am the Dean at Seattle Maritime Academy. We are part of the Seattle College system. We are within Seattle Central College, and we are located just on the north side of the water in Ballard, right near the Ballard Bridge. If you ever are driving across the bridge or visiting Ballard, we'd love to have you come and stop in and say hello once we're done with all of the COVID restrictions on being able to visit places. But once we're back open and hopefully everybody's vaccinated, we would love to have you come visit us. I've been at Seattle Maritime Academy for going on about 5 months now. Prior to that, I was at the Maritime Institute of Technology and Graduate Studies, West Coast campus here in Seattle, doing maritime training as well. And prior to that, I was in the Coast Guard for 22 years. So quite a bit of experience with being out on the water. I'm excited to talk with you a little bit, especially following on the heels of the good folks from Washington State Ferries talking about their programs. A lot of what we do fits very neatly with the needs for Washington State Ferries and for folks that are at Washington State Ferries continuing to advance their careers. We have 2 programs at Seattle Maritime Academy that I'd like to share with you this afternoon. One, marine deck technology, and the other, marine engineering technology. Our marine engineering technology program is designed to help folks learn the skills that they need to become a qualified member of the engineering department. If you start out with absolutely no experience on board a vessel in the engineering department, you start as what we describe as a wiper. And as the name implies, at that point in your career, you're pretty much walking around the engine room, wiping up little drips of oil and wiping up other stuff, and doing the most basic grunt work of being in the engine room on an operating ship. Vitally important jobs where you then get to learn a lot of the other skills. The next step up in that process and in that qualification is a qualified member of the engineering department. That means you know a little bit about how the engines work, a little bit about how to fix things as they break. You've learned a little bit more about everything that's going on and how all of the equipment works together. At SMA, in our classrooms, in our labs, in our simulators, and on board our training vessels, you get to learn those basic skills of shipboard engineering, primarily focused on diesel and auxiliary machinery maintenance, but including a lot of other things as well. Our deck technology program is built kind of in the same way. The entry-level position on the deck side of things on board vessels, you're an ordinary seaman, which again means you are at the bottom of the totem pole. You are the person that doesn't know a whole lot yet, and you're learning all of the skills of being on board a ship. The first step up from that is what is described as an able seaman. So in our classes, and again, classrooms, labs, and on board our training vessels, you'll learn how to steer the ship, how to stand a lookout watch, how to handle lines, all of the knots that you need to know to be safe on board a vessel, as well as doing vessel maintenance kinds of things, not the engineering maintenance, but maintaining the deck equipment, doing painting and other topside maintenance on board. For both of our programs, you need to have a high school diploma. And as you just heard with Washington State Ferries, you'll need a merchant mariner credential. The merchant mariner credential, you apply to the Coast Guard, and assuming that you have, you can pass the basic background check process for the Coast Guard and pass the minimum medical requirements for being on board a vessel, then you'll be issued a merchant mariner credential as an ordinary seaman or an ordinary seaman wiper. At that point, when you get your credential, it doesn't specify whether you're a deck or engine type person, because at that point you're just entry level. You are able to be on a vessel to be trained and to be taught. When you come to Seattle Maritime Academy with your MMC, your Merchant Mariner credential, and your diploma, and your Transportation Workers Identification Card, your TWIC, then you are ready to go and take our classes. Our program is designed to be a year-long program, 3/4 of academic work at the school, followed by 1/4-ish of sea time. And the amount of sea time that you get during our internship phase varies depending on the marine deck technology or marine engineering technology program. In both of our programs, you're going to learn some basic seamanship, basic watch standing, basic vessel construction, some use of tools. You'll take a maritime safety course, your basic safety training course. You'll learn about the use of survival craft and lifeboats, and you'll get a basic introduction to shipboard engineering, whether you're in the deck program or the engineering program. All of our graduates, we want to be able to go out and fill a variety of roles on vessels. Our graduates sail with Washington State Ferries. Our graduates sail with the NOAA, with a variety of research vessels. They sail on tugboats. Our graduates have been employed with some of the smaller cruise companies, Uncruise and Lindblad here in the Seattle area. Some of our graduates go to work on fishing vessels and other larger vessels within the fishing fleet. So we touch all corners of the maritime industry with our graduates and encourage our folks to go and work in any of those places. But we do seek to provide that entry-level training for folks here in the Puget Sound region to work in the maritime industry, because it is so vital to the state of Washington and this region. On average, annually, deckhands make about $48,000 a year and work a variety of schedules ranging, but typically 28 days on, 28 days off, or some version of that. There are some companies that do 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off kinds of stints. Depending on where you're working, those will vary. The oiler, which is the QMed, makes an average annual salary of about $63,000 a year. But again, same kind of schedule, 28 days on, 28 days off. And with that, our contact information, if you want to learn more about our programs and how to apply, you can either go to our website, which I just realized I forgot to add onto the slide there, but I think Sarah Scherer had typed that into the chat. So if you're interested in the website, you can find it in the chat. But please email us or call us if you have any questions about the school. And with that, if I can answer anyone's questions, I would be happy to do that.
Since it's a basic requirement, I'm going to ask you to repeat to the guests here, to get your Merchant Mariner credential, by going through the Coast Guard doesn't mean an enlistment with the Coast Guard, right? It's just an application you fill out, right?
That's correct. Yep.
Yeah.
The National Maritime Center is a Coast Guard office. It's in West Virginia, which has always baffled me, even when I was in the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard has so many offices inland, but the National Maritime Center in West Virginia, you can apply online to get your Merchant Mariner credential, and the Coast Guard regulates the Merchant Mariner credentials and licensing process, but you are not enlisting in the Coast Guard at all. That's a great question.
Is there any kind of knowledge you have to have, like filling out a driver's license test or anything like that?
There is not. For the entry level ordinary seaman wiper, there's no knowledge requirement at all. At each step beyond that, there is typically a testing requirement. Our program is in lieu of exam for the Coast Guard. So to get your able seaman or your QMed, normally you can go get a bunch of sea time and then go test with the Coast Guard. If you go through our program, it reduces the amount of sea time that you're required to get that endorsement, and the testing is covered by the testing that we do within our academic program.
Dale, there was a question in the chat. What is the cost of each of the SMA programs?
The programs are right. The tuition is right around $10,000. That it varies a little bit by year as the tuition rates at Seattle Central College change, and as we're currently in the process of modifying our program, which may change the hours some. But right around $10,000 for the tuition for the year to go through the program. And that's the 4 quarters are included in that.
Can you go under financial aid for this?
We are, it is, because we are at Seattle Central College and therefore part of an accredited program and at an accredited college, yes, there is financial aid available.
And then what is the cost for the Merchant Mariner card?
That's a good question.
I thought I read something like 45 bucks.
I think yes, that sounds right. And then every time you apply to the Coast Guard, there's an additional fee. So the initial one is $45 to $60 to get the Merchant Mariner credential. When you then apply to get your AB or QMed, I believe it's another $100 for the upgrade and for the exam. If you are taking the exam, if you're not having to take the exam, you don't have to pay that fee.
And this may be something, and I'm not sure, but this may be something if you have a case manager that you're working with, that support services may be able to help pay for.
Yes, I believe that is true. Certainly from the Coast Guard perspective, they don't particularly care where that fund is coming from. So it's whatever the internal rules are for any of those support services as to how those monies can be spent. But I believe that they can be used for something like getting your MMC and your TWIC.
And when they're doing the internship on the actual ship, are they like going out to sea and learning that, or do they come home every day, or is this like a 3-month thing out on the sea?
It will vary by where they're doing the internship. We do partner with Washington State Ferries, especially for our engineers, to do their internships aboard WSF vessels. So they are home presumably every night, I guess, depending on where they live. And if they live on the east side, that may be a little bit more challenging just because WSF always overnights the vessels over on the west side of the Sound. But for the most part, you would be home on a routine basis. Other companies, if they're doing longer stints, you might be gone for 28 days straight underway and then get relieved and come back and then go out and do another 28 days at a later time. We have occasionally done some partnerships, and I'm working on trying to set up some internship opportunities with some research vessels. And on those research vessels, you might actually, for the Thomas G. Thompson from University of Washington, for example, you might be gone for 3 months straight to get your 90 days of sea time that way. That will just vary so much by where you end up doing the internship as to how long you would be gone at any one time. One of the other companies that we are partnering with is Coastal Transportation, which is just right across the water from us there in Ballard. And they will do 28-day trips up to Alaska and back. So you get pretty long stretches that you're underway and working pretty hard, and then you'll be home for a while and have some time off before you get underway and do that again. They do fairly long stretches, short periods of time that they're home, just because of the nature of when they're going up and how they're operating, especially during the summer months.